Hi, let's create an Angular app from scratch. I have here the example that we will build. So in this example, we have a form with two inputs. In the first input, we will put the name of a book or an article name, and in the second input, we will put the content of that book or article. For example, here, if I put the name book 1, and here if I write content 1 and I click on the button add book, here you see that my book is added. And also let's put here article 1, and let's put in this input the content for my article, and let's click on the button add article. And you can see here that my article is added in the page. Okay, so let's build this app from scratch. I have here in my Visual Studio Code an application created with create Angular app. So for this, I added the command ng create, and I installed also Bootstrap. You will find the link in this video description with the started project if you want to download it already installed. And also you'll find a link with the final project. Okay, so let's start. Here, let's make this text bigger. So here I have the starter code for my Angular application, and my application is running here in the terminal. Here I have the app module, I have the app component file, and I have the HTML file where I already added this h1, and as you can see, this is my h1. So here we need to start to write our code. For this, in this example, we can see that we have a form and we have a list of elements. So we can add two components in our application. First, we'll add a component for the form. Let's name it cockpit, for example. And after that, we need to add a list with each elements from our list. So let's create first the cockpit component. To create a component, I'll use the Angular CLI, and I'll run this command ng gc, and here I'll put the name of the component, and let's put the name cockpit, and let's add skip tests equal true. I'll add the skip tests true because I don't want my CLI to add unit tests for me. Let's wait. So I'm waiting for Angular to create my cockpit component. My component is created, so we can see that we have a TypeScript file with our component. We have a HTML file with the name cockpit works, and I have a CSS file. Let's start adding the code. So for the cockpit, what we need? Let's write the HTML. So for the cockpit, we have Bootstrap installed in this application. So I created the Angular application and I added Bootstrap. In Bootstrap, we have the container class where we can put our HTML. So I added a div with the class container, or I don't know. I think that it's better to add container in the app component. This cockpit component will be added in the app component, and here let's add a row. So I have row here. In the row I have call XS12, and here let's add a title. For this I'll use h3 and I'll add the title add books and articles in the list. Now let's create the form. For this I'll add a label, I'll delete the for, and I'll put the text element name. I'll create a label with the type text. Let's put it on another line with the class, with the Bootstrap class form control. And this is my first label and input from my form. Let's add a second label with the text element content, and the second input with the type text and class for minus control. So we have a label, a input. No, we have two labels and two inputs. Now let's add the buttons. For the buttons, I'll use the Bootstrap class btn and btn minus primary. For the first button, I'll add a text add book. Let's add the second button with the class btn and the text btn minus primary and the class add article. Something is, oh, it's not book, it's button. Okay, so we have the cockpit component already done. It's almost done. Let's test it. Let's put this cockpit component in our app component. So in app component, let's delete this text. Let's add the container from Bootstrap. And here let's put the app cockpit already created by us. Okay, and yeah, here in our app module, the cockpit is added in our declarations. Okay, so let's test. This is our application, and how we can see, we have our cockpit, our cockpit component with the buttons. But yeah, here we need to add some styles for the buttons. Okay, let's see. Let's go and to continue with the cockpit component. Also, in the cockpit component, now we need to add our TypeScript code. In the cockpit component, we need to add the data from the form and to send it to the app component. So here in cockpit component, we need two functions. One, or let's put them here. The first will be with the name on add book, and the second will be on add article. Okay, and these two functions will be called here. The first will be called in the first button. First, let's add here a BR tag to have space between the input and the buttons. And here, let's add the click event with, and on the click event we'll call on add book function. For the second button, we'll add the function on add article. And let's continue in cockpit component. So in cockpit component, we'll add the information from our form, and this information will be sent to the app component, because the information from cockpit component needs to be here in app component, because from app component we will put the information in our list of elements. So in a cockpit component, let's create the two models for the two inputs. The first model will be new element name. The second will be new element content. Okay, and here in the inputs we need to put our ng model with a new element name, and the second ng model with new element content. So when we'll type something here in one of these two inputs, the data will be accessed here. And here because we want to send the data to the app component. So from the child component to the parent component, we need to add the first, let's add the output decorator, and here let's write book created equals new event emitter, like this. And here we need to send the argument, and the argument will be the structure for our object that will be sent in the app component. So the structure will be like this. We'll have a name, which is a string, and we'll have a content, which is also a string. Okay. We'll fix this error. Also, so event emitter needs to be here. Now it's okay. Let's copy this and let's create another output for article created, which has the same arguments. And now on add book, here we need to access this property book created, and we need to call the emit function, and here we need to send the name, which is new element name, and also we need to send the content, which is new element content. We need to do the same for articles, and here I need to put article created. Okay, I think that this is all here, also here. So we have the cockpit component, and from cockpit component we'll send the data here in app component. So here in app component, where we have the app cockpit component added, we'll add book created. We need to add this output and this output. We need to add book created, which will be equal with a function from app component, and the name will be on book added. Here we have an event. Also here I have article created, which is equal with on article added. And now in app component I need to add these two functions. So here I need an empty array, which is elements, and I'll create these two methods, on book added and on article added. So here I'll have on book added and the function on article added. Here in these two functions we'll have a parameter, and the parameter will be this event. I'll name it here data, and I'll put here string and content, which is also a string. and also here I have the same content and string. Here in these two functions we need to add the elements in this array. So these two functions will be created from cockpit component. So in cockpit component, when we click on one of the two buttons, we'll call one of these two functions. These two functions will send the data in app component on the function onBookEdit or in the function or article edit. It depends on the button which we clicked. Okay, good. Now in these two functions we need to add elements here. So here I have these elements push, and here I'll add a object. This object will have a type, and the type here will be book, a name, the name will be data name, and the content. The content will be data content. Here in on article edit I have the same, and the difference is that here I'll have article. Now in the app component, when these functions will be called from here on book edit and on article edit, we'll add the data received from the parameter data to the elements array. Now let's add the list of elements. So we have the container here, and also we have the cockpit here. Let's add a line between the cockpit and the list of elements. And let's add a row. Inside the row, let's add a call XS12 element. And here we need to add the list of elements from this array. For this, I'll create a new component. So I'll generate a new component for my element component. So I'll create an element component which will contain each element. So here I'll have ngGC, the name of the component will be element, and I'll also here I have skip tests equals true. Let's wait. So Angular will create our element component. Oh, here I have a mistake. So here we need to have skip tests equals true. Oh, it's skip tests. Okay, so our element component is created. Great. I'll delete this generated text, and here I'll create a div, and I'll add some bootstrap classes. So the classes will be panel and panel default, and this is the container for our element. For each element we need to add the name and the content. Let's add a heading for our panel, so I'll add a class panel heading, and here I'll add element dot name, and now we need to define this element. So this element will be received from the input. So here I need to have, let's put something like that, the input decorator with the name element, and here let's define the type of our element. So it's an object with a property type, which is a string. It also has a property name, which is also a string, and we also have the content property, which is also a string. Good. Here we have the element name, and let's add also a body with a class panel body. Inside here let's add ng content, and we'll add the content, the remaining content from the parent component. So here in the parent component we need to continue the code. Here now we have the element created, so we need to add our list of elements. So I'll add app element, and here I have list of elements, so I need to add the ng4, and here I have let element of elements, because here I have the elements array, so I'll iterate in this array, and I'll send the input. So the input needs to be an element, so here I need to put the element. And now let's add the remaining content. So now we need to add the content that will be put here in ng content. So here I'll add a paragraph. Inside it I'll add a verification. First I'll add a strong paragraph, and here I have a ng if. So if our element type is equal to book, I'll add the style color red, and here I'll add the content. Also, if the element type is an article, I'll add it inside an M, and here we need the verification. So if the element type is article, here I need to add also the content. So for the books, The content will be added in a strong element with a red color, and for the articles the content will be added in an M tag, without the red color. Okay, let's test. So if I put here book name 1 and book content 1, and I click on the button add book, yeah, I have here book name 1 and book content 1, and if I change here and I put article name 1 and article content 1 and I click on add article, I have here article content 1, and I have here the, yeah, here I had the paragraph color blue, because by default the color for the paragraphs is blue. And let's style this text also. Let's go here in the element. Oh, here I need to add a n. And now let's test again. So I have book name 1, book content 1. I click on add book, and I have this panel hidden now because I fixed the issue. The name was incomplete. And now let's add a article. So I'll put here article name 1 and also article content 1, and I'll click on article, and we see that we have our book and our article. By default the paragraph color is blue, and for the articles we added italic style for the article content, and for the books we added the red text. So this is our application. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you.